So much for coming today. My name is Dalia and I'm with the Palestinian Youth Movement. And I have another member here, Noor. She's also with the PYM. Our chapter is pretty newly formed, so this isn't our official launch, but we should be having our official launch in September. Essentially what the PYM does is political education, campaigns, workshops, beyond just protest. So if anyone would actually like to get involved politically in Vancouver and kind of jump on the campaigns that we're doing, please feel free to come to me or Noor. And you can also email us, and we have some pamphlets with us too. So essentially we're here today to continue to raise our voices in Vancouver, to show that we're here, that we're protesting for Palestine, especially after the assassination of a prominent critic in Palestine by the Palestinian Authority, no less, who does not represent Palestinians. So it's twofold, protesting against the Zionist regime, the Israeli occupation, and the Palestinian Authority. And so with that being said, it's very important to have kind of a collective liberation framework, which is why I'm going to be asking a few different people from other organizations to give a quick speech before you march on over to the U.S. consulate. So with that being said, the first person we're going to have speak is Charlotte Cates from Islam and Women's Political Prisoners Network. She does a lot of work on releasing Palestinian political prisoners, and we work in conjunction with them a lot, so we're going to give it to her. But that's why it's so important that we, as people, not as governments, but as people on the streets, as people in our trade unions, in our student movement, in our communities, in our struggles for justice here on this land and everywhere around the world, do come together to say that we stand with Palestine. We stand with Silwan. The Canadian government does not speak for us. And so we stand for the liberation
because the Palestinian resistance reflects the best that the world has to offer in the struggle for freedom, and that's why wherever there's a protest for justice, whether it's a protest to say that Black Lives Matter, whether it's a protest for Indigenous justice and land back, whether it's a protest in Brazil or South Africa or in Italy where dock workers won't load Israeli cargo, whether it's a protest in France against economic austerity or a protest in Pakistan, Korea, or Japan for justice, wherever people are marching, and of course, everywhere in the Arab world, wherever people are marching for justice, wherever people stand for liberation, the Palestinian flag is there because Palestine says we can win. We can beat imperialism. We can beat Zionism. And together we can envision a liberated future. So I want to echo what Dalia said and invite everyone to get involved, to join an organization, to get involved with PYM. If you want to know more about Sami Dune and our work to free Palestinian prisoners, come talk to me, sign up on our sheet. We'd love to let you know about what's going on and invite you to come back on Sunday, July 18th for the boycott tour, where we're going to talk about how we can boycott Israeli apartheid and take action against the corporations and institutions, including the BC liquor stores, government-owned companies that are continuing to profit from the exploitation of Palestinian land and labor. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine! River to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Thank you, Charlotte. So the next person we're going to have is from Bayan Canada. And Bayan Canada is an alliance of anti-imperialist groups organizing in Canada for national democracy in the Philippines. And many of the struggles that people in the Philippines go through are very similar to Palestinian struggles, and that's why we are excited to be
I bring you militant greetings from the 800-member-strong Bayan Canada. Together with me today are our representatives from the women's group Gabriela, the youth group, and Migrante. Bayan Canada condemns the Zionist occupation and stands in solidarity with the movement for Palestinian liberation. For years, the Palestinian people have resisted the colonization of their ancestral land, just like the Filipino people who have been fighting for our resistance since 1896. As oppressed peoples of the world, we must unite against foreign occupation and imperialism. Palestinians have the right to return to their homes, the right to have their decent lives uninterrupted by genocidal fascist imperialism. We refuse to accept another apartheid, the subordinate treatment of economic, social, political, and civil rights of Palestinians. We support the Palestinians' right to fight for their liberation by any means necessary. The people have the right to resist and wage all forms of resistance and struggle. The resistance of the Filipino people is inherently tied to the resistance of the Palestinians and vice versa. Our movements are strengthened as we struggle for genuine peace intensifies. Together, let us struggle towards victory. Long live international solidarity. No to Canadian tax dollar for Israel's crime. Stop US-backed Zionist war against the Palestinian people. Free, free Palestine. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Thank you so much. The last thing that I want to stress, we were supposed to have some folks from Graded Warriors, which is a youth indigenous organization. I recommend you all follow them on Instagram. They're doing amazing work, defending their lands, blocking pipelines from being built here. And as settlers on this land, we have a duty to support and advocate for land back. And another organization I really recommend for everyone to follow is Defund 604. They're a group of Black and Indigenous people who are also working to remove police from spaces and to target people of colors, communities, to understand why essentially collaborating with the cops especially as Arabs and Palestinians, is very incompatible with liberation. So I suggest we all kind of learn a bit more, because I know it's difficult to understand why we shouldn't be essentially trusting cops, especially when there's a lot of surveillance on these different marginalized communities. So thank you so much. We're going to be starting to march